I'm Sarah Chen, 33 years old. Has your family ever made you invisible at your own celebration? 2 weeks ago at my mother's farewell ceremony, crowning 28 years as headmaster of a renowned academy, I was removed from the honored guests' table before 300 attendees. My transgression: being merely a kindergarten teacher who supposedly disgraced our name, while her new stepdaughter, a financial consultant, claimed my chair and my designated role on a $4 million literacy initiative committee. Standing there trembling, mortified beyond measure. Then my reserved, modest husband approached that podium, and the entire hall went silent. His revelation about his true identity transformed everything in under 90 seconds. My mother's expression, the audience's shock, particularly my stepfather's spilled wine glass, remain etched in memory. Subscribe if you're watching and share your location. Have you experienced family dismissal for insufficient achievement? Let me transport you to that evening. The Imperial Ballroom at Harbor Heights Resort glittered that night. Sparkling fixtures illuminated circular tables adorned with cream-colored fabric, centerpieces of pale roses costing more than my monthly grocery budget. This transcended ordinary retirement celebrations. This was Margaret Chen's magnificent conclusion, ensuring every significant educational figure would observe it. Daniel and I appeared 20 minutes behind schedule due to freeway construction delays. I adjusted my charcoal dress, my finest, purchased 4 years earlier for my educator recognition event. Daniel appeared distinguished in his understated gray suit, though I noticed him monitoring his phone unusually frequently. "Everything all right professionally?" I inquired, entering the ballroom. "Final coordination details," he responded, pressing my hand reassuringly. "Nothing concerning." The space hummed with approximately 300 attendees. District administrators, academy directors, significant contributors, journalists from the regional education publication. A photographer captured images near the platform displaying an enormous banner reading, "Honoring Headmaster Margaret Chen, 28 years of academic achievement." My mother positioned herself near the entrance, wearing an expensive navy designer suit. Richard, her spouse of 5 years, stood beside her in formal attire, his expensive watch reflecting light with each calculated gesture. They resembled magazine models. "Sarah," Mother's voice carried when spotting us, though her smile appeared strained. "You arrived." "Naturally, Mom. Wouldn't miss this occasion." Richard's assessment of my dress conveyed clear disappointment. "Thoughtful of you attending. Amanda's been here 2 hours already connecting with committee members." Amanda, Richard's daughter, the accomplished one. "The construction was..." I began. "Explanations unnecessary," Richard interrupted smoothly. "Let's locate your table." Progressing through the crowd, I observed the television crew positioning equipment near the stage. Whatever announcement my mother planned required documentation. Daniel's phone vibrated again. He checked it briefly, his expression unreadable. Something about tonight felt wrong. The way Richard maintained his smile, how my mother avoided direct conversation, especially how Daniel clutched his phone like anticipating something. I couldn't know I was about to disappear from my family's history. The name cards at the distinguished table gleamed like small judgments. I examined them repeatedly, my stomach sinking with each review. Margaret Chen, Richard Chen, Amanda Porter, Stephen Williams. Board representatives, major contributors. No Sarah Chen. "There's clearly a seating error," I said, maintaining composure. Richard materialized beside me, his smile sharp. "Didn't Margaret inform you about last-minute modifications? Space limitations, you comprehend." I surveyed the table. 10 chairs, 9 cards, 1 vacant seat beside where Amanda already sat, her polished fingers resting on the chair back while conversing energetically with Stephen Williams, the Literacy Initiative chairman. "I'm her daughter," I whispered. "Certainly you are, dear. You're at table 15 there." Richard indicated a table toward the rear, partially concealed behind decorative foliage with other district educators. Won't that be pleasant? You'll share common ground. Daniel's expression hardened beside me. This is her mother's farewell ceremony. We're delighted you both attended, Richard responded smoothly, already turning. Amanda, sweetheart, tell Mr. Williams about your recent client acquisition. Amanda looked up, her smile impeccably rehearsed. Oh, Sarah, didn't notice you there. Don't you look comfortable? Her gaze swept my 4-year-old dress. Richard was just discussing my advancement to lead consultant, youngest in our company's timeline. The words stung precisely as intended. I stood paralyzed, witnessing my nameplate's absence like prophecy. My mother approached, adjusting her blazer. Mom, why am I excluded from your table? She shifted uncomfortably. Richard suggested it would benefit networking if Amanda. She has contacts valuable to the initiative. You understand, purely strategic. Purely strategic. My own mother had made my exclusion a calculated decision. Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady but firm. Where exactly should Sarah sit? Table 15 is perfectly suitable, my mother said, avoiding eye contact. Many respected educators there. Respected educators. Code for people insufficiently important for the distinguished table. Amanda's laughter rang out as she touched Stephen Williams's arm discussing corporate partnerships. She occupied my chair, experiencing my moment, and everyone seemed accepting. Daniel's phone vibrated. He glanced at it, something flickering in his expression. Satisfaction. Come on, I whispered, pulling his arm. Let's just go to table 15. But I couldn't shake feeling I'd been downgraded in my family's hierarchy. Table 15 felt like banishment. As we navigated the ballroom, Richard's voice carried over background music, each word precisely targeted for maximum effect. This is Amanda, my daughter, he announced to a contributor circle. Lead consultant at Sterling Advisory. She recently secured a 7-figure contract with the Morrison Group. A pause then. Oh, and that's Margaret's daughter Sarah, heading toward the back. She teaches kindergarten at Lincoln Elementary, the public institution. The way he emphasized public made it sound contagious. Daniel's hand found mine beneath table 15's synthetic tablecloth, vastly different from the distinguished table's silk. Around us sat 6 other teachers, all appearing somewhat uncomfortable in their finest clothes, clearly aware they occupied the budget seats at this premium event. Kindergarten, correct? Asked Mr. Park, a high school science teacher. I heard you received Educator of the Year 2 years ago. I did, I said, managing a smile. That's impressive, he replied. But we both heard the unspoken truth. Impressive didn't secure distinguished table access. Across the room, Amanda's voice projected confidently as she discussed international finance strategy with someone from the governor's office. Regularly, Richard would gesture toward her, ensuring everyone knew that was his daughter, the successful one. My mother worked the room and I counted. She introduced Amanda to 18 people in 20 minutes. She passed our table 3 times without stopping. Daniel squeezed my hand tighter. His phone illuminated with a message. I glimpsed it. Everything confirmed. Proceed when ready. What's that regarding? Asked. Just professional matters, he said. But something in his tone felt unfamiliar. How are you managing? I'm fine, I lied. No, you're not. His dark eyes met mine, steady and warm. And you shouldn't need to pretend. From the distinguished table, another burst of laughter. Richard was now informing someone about Amanda's Yale business degree, loud enough for our section to hear. We're tremendously proud of her accomplishments. It requires genuine determination to reach such heights. Genuine determination. Unlike teaching 5-year-olds their alphabet, apparently. Mr. Park leaned over sympathetically. Family gatherings can be complex. I nodded, watching my mother beam at Amanda as she displayed something on her phone. Probably her latest performance bonus. Meanwhile, I had 32 students' handmade appreciation cards in my desk drawer, but those didn't translate to networking advantages. Daniel typed something quickly on his phone, then secured it. "Whatever you're considering," I whispered. "Don't. It's not necessary." He kissed my forehead. "You're always necessary." The lighting dimmed slightly as my mother took the platform, tapping the microphone with practiced authority. 300 faces turned toward her, and the photographer positioned himself for optimal shots. "Thank you all for attending tonight," Mom began, her voice carrying that headmaster's authority I'd grown up admiring. "Standing here preparing to conclude this chapter, I'm filled with gratitude." She proceeded with acknowledgments, the district board, fellow headmasters, major contributors. Then came the personal segment. My pulse accelerated. "I'm blessed with a wonderful family," she said, gesturing to the distinguished table. "My devoted husband Richard, who's been my foundation these 5 years. And I'm particularly proud tonight to have Amanda Porter here, Richard's daughter, whom I've grown to consider my own." Consider my own. The words struck like frozen rain. Amanda just achieved lead consultant at Sterling Advisory, youngest in their timeline. Yale Business highest honors. She represents everything we hope education can accomplish: determination, excellence, and drive to reach the pinnacle of her field. The applause was enthusiastic. Amanda stood, waving graciously, her crimson designer dress catching every light. The photographer captured multiple shots. Waited. Surely now she'd mention me. "Family is everything," Mom continued, moving on to thank the catering staff. That was it. Her other daughter, the one who'd followed her footsteps into education, didn't warrant acknowledgement. 28 years in education, and she couldn't recognize the daughter who became a teacher. Mr. Park touched my arm gently. "That seemed expected." "I suppose," I finished, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. But inside, memories flooded back. Mom missing my college graduation because Richard had planned a European trip. Forgetting my birthday 3 years consecutively. The holiday dinner where Amanda's promotion dominated every conversation while my Educator of the Year award went unmentioned. "You know what?" Daniel said suddenly, his voice carrying an unusual note. "I just recalled something." "What?" "The first time you told me about winning that teaching award, you were so excited you called your mother immediately." He paused. "She said she'd return your call. Did she ever?" The answer sat between us, heavy as stone. No, she never called back. On stage, Mom was now sharing an amusing story about her first day as headmaster. The crowd laughed warmly. She was charming, commanding, everything a leader should be, everything a parent should be, except to the daughter who disappointed her by choosing passion over prestige. Daniel's phone buzzed. He read the message and for the first time tonight he smiled. "What?" "Yes. Just remembering why I married a teacher," he said. "And why that matters more than anyone in this room realizes." My mother returned to the microphone, her expression shifting to what I recognized as her major announcement expression, the same one she'd worn when informing me about marrying Richard. "Now for the evening's significant announcement," she said, commanding instant silence. "As you know, the Chen Literacy Initiative has received a generous commitment of $4 million from EDU Tech Solutions." Appreciative murmurs rippled through the crowd. $4 million was substantial even for this affluent audience. "This initiative will provide scholarships and resources for emerging educational leaders," Mom continued. "And tonight I'm thrilled to announce who will assume my position on the initiatives committee when I retire." My breath caught. This was it. The position she'd promised me 4 years ago when the initiative was first established. "When I retire, Sarah, you'll continue the family tradition," she'd said. "Your classroom experience will be invaluable." "After careful consideration," Mom said, her voice swelling with pride, "I'm delighted to announce that Amanda Porter will be joining the committee as my successor." The room erupted in applause. Amanda stood, smoothing her crimson dress, waving like she'd just won an award. Richard beamed, dabbing at his eyes with theatrical precision. I sat frozen, unable to process what I just heard. 4 years of preparation, 3 years of research into teacher scholarship programs, countless proposals I drafted for innovative classroom funding. "Amanda brings a unique perspective," Mom continued. "Her financial expertise and corporate connections will help the initiative expand beyond anything we've imagined." Financial expertise for a literacy initiative to help teachers. Daniel's hand gripped mine so tightly it almost hurt. "That position was yours." "I know," I whispered. But it was worse than just losing the position. This initiative would determine scholarship allocations for hundreds of teachers across the region. Teachers like me who Amanda had probably never conversed with outside of tonight. She didn't know the difference between phonics-based instruction and whole language approaches. She'd never spent a day in a classroom. "Furthermore," Mom added, "Amanda will be collaborating closely with our primary sponsor, EDU Tech Solutions, to ensure their vision aligns with our objectives." Their vision. Not educators' vision. Not teachers' needs. Corporate vision. Mr. Park gasped softly beside me. "But you're an actual teacher. You understand what we genuinely need." I did, which was exactly why I wasn't selected. Daniel stood abruptly. "Excuse me momentarily. Where are you going?" "To make a call," he said, his voice carrying an edge I'd never heard before. "This changes things." As he walked away, phone already at his ear, I watched Amanda accepting congratulations at the distinguished table. My inheritance transformed into her stepping stone. The full weight of what I'd lost hit me as Stephen Williams, the committee chairman, stood to elaborate on the position's responsibilities. "The committee member will oversee allocation of nearly $400,000 annually in teacher scholarships," he explained. "They'll determine funding priorities, select recipients, and shape the future of educational support in our region. $400,000 every year for teachers who desperately needed support." I thought about Mrs. Garcia at my school working evening shifts at a grocery store to buy classroom supplies. About James, the first-grade teacher who'd started online fundraising for learning disability resources. About my own $300 monthly spending on books and materials. This position could have changed all that. "I've prepared a comprehensive proposal," Amanda was telling someone at her table loud enough to carry, "focusing on leadership development and administrative advancement programs." Administrative advancement. Not classroom supplies. Not teacher retention. Not the things that actually mattered to the children we taught every day. My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "Need you to trust me. Something important is about to happen." I looked around but couldn't spot him in the crowd. Where had he gone? Richard's voice cut through my thoughts as he addressed a group near our table, ensuring we could all hear. "Amanda's already identified several partnership opportunities with corporate sponsors. Real innovation, not just the same tired classroom charity efforts." Classroom charity efforts. Is that what he thought of our fundraising attempts? 3 years, I said quietly to Mr. Park. "I've spent 3 years researching teacher burnout, creating retention strategies, designing mentorship programs." "We know," he said gently. "We all know what you've done for this community. But knowing didn't matter. Not here. Not in this room where success was measured in client portfolios and corporate connections." My mother was back at the microphone. "Amanda will bring fresh perspective to literacy funding. Sometimes it takes an outsider to see what insiders miss." An outsider. After 28 years in education, She truly believed an outsider would serve teachers better than an actual teacher. My phone lit up with another message from Daniel. Watch Stephen Williams. This is important. I looked toward the distinguished table. Stephen Williams was reading something on his phone, his expression shifting from casual interest to sharp attention. He glanced around the room, searching for someone. Before we continue, Stephen said, standing suddenly, I'd like to clarify something about our corporate sponsors. The room quieted. This wasn't part of the program. Richard looked confused. Amanda's smile faltered slightly. And somewhere in the crowd, my husband was orchestrating something I didn't yet understand. I couldn't sit there anymore, not with 300 people witnessing my erasure. My legs moved before my brain caught up, carrying me toward the distinguished table with determination I didn't know I possessed. Mom, we need to talk. The conversation at the table stopped. 9 faces turned toward me, including Amanda's perfectly composed smirk. Not now, Sarah. Her tone carried that headmaster's authority that used to make students freeze. Yes, now. This can't wait. You're making a scene. Richard's voice was ice wrapped in silk. Am I? Because I thought we were celebrating education tonight. I kept my voice steady, professional, the same tone I used with difficult parents. That position was promised to me 4 years ago. Circumstances change, Mom said, not meeting my eyes. What circumstances? My teaching award, my graduate degree, my 12 years of classroom experience. Amanda laughed, a tinkling sound like breaking glass. Sarah, managing a multi-million-dollar initiative requires more than good intentions. You're right. It requires understanding what teachers actually need, which is why we need someone with genuine experience, Richard interjected. Genuine experience. The words came out sharper than intended. I teach 32 5-year-olds every day. I buy supplies with my own money. I work 70-hour weeks for $38,000 annually. How much more genuine does it get? People at nearby tables were turning to watch. Someone had their phone out recording. This is embarrassing, Mom hissed. You need to leave now. Embarrassing. What's embarrassing is giving a literacy committee seat to someone who's never set foot in a classroom. Security, Richard called out, raising his hand. 2 security guards started moving toward us. The photographer was snapping pictures. This was it. The moment I became the unstable daughter who ruined her mother's retirement. I'm going, I said, backing away. But everyone here should know that Margaret Chen just chose networking over knowledge, connections over compassion. Her legacy isn't education. It's opportunism. Get out. Mom's face was flushed, her composure finally cracking. You're no longer welcome here. The words hit harder than any slap. No longer welcome at my own mother's retirement. As security approached, a calm voice cut through the tension. That won't be necessary. Daniel appeared beside me, his presence steady as a lighthouse. He addressed the security guards with quiet authority. We're leaving voluntarily. But first, Mrs. Chen, one question. Mom glared at him. What? Do you know who your primary sponsor actually is? The CEO of EDU Tech Solutions. Of course. Some tech executive. What does that? Interesting. Very interesting. Daniel's smile was subtle but unmistakable. Shall we go, Sarah? Something in his tone made everyone pause. The security guards flanked us as we walked through the ballroom, 300 pairs of eyes tracking our humiliation. You're embarrassing yourself, Richard called out loud enough for everyone to hear. This is what happens when you can't accept your limitations. I stopped walking, turned back. The entire room held its breath. My limitations. Some people are meant for greatness, Amanda added, standing now, her voice carrying that boardroom confidence. Others are meant for simpler things. There's no shame in being average, Sarah. Average. The word hung in the air like a verdict. Teaching is noble work, Richard continued with fake sympathy. But let's be honest. Anyone can teach kindergarten. It takes real talent to succeed in finance or business. Anyone can teach. I thought of Emma, my student with speech delays who'd finally learned to communicate. Of Marcus, who'd overcome severe anxiety in my classroom. Of the 18-hour days, the individualized instruction, the child development courses, the endless patience required to shape young minds. You're right, I said quietly. Anyone can stand in front of a classroom. Not everyone can teach. There's a difference. Mom stood up at the distinguished table, her face burgundy with rage. Security, escort them out now. Margaret, Stephen Williams interjected. Perhaps we should. Stay out of this, Stephen. This is family business. Family business. Being publicly humiliated was family business. The guards moved closer. One touched my elbow. Ma'am, we need you to leave. Don't touch my wife. Daniel's voice was still calm but unmistakable. The guard immediately stepped back. Or what? Mom challenged. You'll both leave. Please do. Amanda's announcement is the only one that matters tonight. Daniel pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. You're absolutely right, Margaret. Amanda's announcement does matter. In fact, it matters to quite a few people. What's that supposed to mean? Richard demanded. You'll find out. Daniel pocketed his phone. Stephen, you might want to check your email. I just sent you something important. Stephen Williams frowned, pulling out his phone. His eyes widened as he read. What did you, Mom started. Nothing that wasn't already in motion, Daniel said calmly. Sarah, let's go. We don't need to be here for what happens next. As we walked toward the exit, I heard Stephen Williams's urgent voice. Margaret, we need to talk now. The last thing I saw was my mother's confused face as Stephen Williams showed her something on his phone, and Richard's perfectly composed expression beginning to crack. We were almost at the ballroom doors when Daniel stopped abruptly. Actually, I've changed my mind. He turned back toward the room, his stride purposeful. I'd never seen him like this. Usually my husband was the quiet one, content to support from the sidelines. But something had shifted. Daniel, what are you doing? Something I should have done the moment they changed your seat. He walked straight to the stage, taking the stairs two at a time. Excuse me, Mrs. Chen, Daniel said into the microphone. His voice carrying that same calm authority I'd heard him use on conference calls. One quick question before we go. Mom looked ready to explode. Get off that stage. Just one question. You mentioned EDU Tech Solutions is providing $4 million to your initiative. That's quite impressive. Do you know much about EDU Tech? What kind of question is that? Richard shrieked. Security. But Stephen Williams raised his hand, stopping security. Let him speak, Margaret. This is relevant. Daniel continued, unruffled. EDU Tech specializes in educational technology for underserved schools. They believe every child deserves quality education regardless of location. He'd said. Fascinating company history actually, Daniel continued conversationally. Founded 6 years ago by someone who watched his father struggle as a public school teacher. He spent his own money on supplies, worked weekends without pay, never got the recognition he deserved. Sound familiar? The room was dead silent now. Even the catering staff had stopped moving. The founder promised himself that when he had the means, he'd support teachers properly. Not with empty words or photo opportunities, but with real resources. Daniel looked directly at my mother. That founder believed teachers like Sarah, the ones who stay late tutoring struggling students, who spend their summers designing innovative curricula, who see potential where others see problems, Those teachers deserve more than a seat at the back of the room. What's your point? Mom demanded, though her voice had lost its edge. My point is that EduTech's funding comes with specific conditions. Values alignment, they call it. The company is very particular about who manages their donations. Stephen Williams was typing furiously on his phone now, his expression increasingly alarmed. Daniel, I whispered, pieces clicking into place. The conference calls he took in his home office. The educational journals on his nightstand. The way he always knew exactly what my classroom needed. The contract terms, Daniel said, his voice still conversational, are quite specific about the kind of leadership EduTech expects. Strange that you didn't review them more carefully. My mother's face had gone from flushed to pale. You're not. You can't be. Daniel smiled. It wasn't a cruel smile, just matter of fact. Interesting assumptions, Mrs. Chen. Stephen Williams stepped forward, his phone in hand, voice urgent. Margaret, we need to discuss this immediately. The contract specifications. What contract specifications? Richard demanded, his composure finally cracking. Daniel pulled out his own phone, reading from the screen. Section 9.2. Initiative management must prioritize classroom educator experience. Section 9.3. Committee positions should reflect diverse educational backgrounds with preference for active teachers. He looked up. Should I continue? Amanda laughed nervously. This is ridiculous. You can't seriously suggest. I'm not suggesting anything, Daniel interrupted smoothly. I'm simply reading from a binding legal document, one that Mrs. Chen signed 8 weeks ago. My mother grabbed the contract from Stephen Williams, scanning it frantically. Her face went even paler. Furthermore, Daniel continued, EduTech reserves the right to withdraw funding if these conditions aren't met. It's all there in black and white. You set us up, Richard hissed. No. We offered $4 million with clear conditions. You just assumed you could ignore them. Daniel's voice remained perfectly professional. Interesting how you never bothered to ask who ran EduTech. You saw the money and assumed the details didn't matter. I noticed something then. The EduTech logo on the massive backdrop behind the stage. The same stylized book with a light bulb I'd seen on Daniel's laptop screen dozens of times. How had I missed it? This is entrapment. Amanda stood up, her consultant instincts kicking in. Actually, it's contract law, Daniel replied. Your specialty involves corporate finance, I believe. Then you'll appreciate Section 14.1. Any public announcement of committee positions without sponsor approval constitutes breach of contract. The room buzzed with whispers. Phones were out everywhere, recording this unprecedented reversal. Stephen Williams cleared his throat. Margaret, as committee chairman, I have to ask, did you review this contract with legal counsel before signing? Aye. Richard said Amanda had reviewed it. All eyes turned to Amanda, who suddenly looked less like a lead consultant and more like a deer in headlights. I skimmed it. It seemed standard. Skimmed. Stephen Williams's tone could have frozen water. A $4 million contract and you skimmed it. Daniel stepped back from the microphone. Mr. Williams, I believe you have some decisions to make about the initiative's leadership. We'll await your response. As he walked back toward me, the room erupted. Stephen Williams was calling an emergency committee meeting. Richard was screaming at Amanda. My mother stood frozen, staring at the contract like it might disappear if she looked hard enough. And on the backdrop behind them all, the EduTech logo seemed to glow a little brighter. Richard's composure shattered completely. He grabbed the microphone from the podium, his voice shrill with desperation. This is manipulation. This man, he pointed at Daniel, has been deceiving us all, hiding who he was. Sarah probably planned this whole thing. Planned what? I asked, finding my voice. Planned to be humiliated at my mother's retirement. Planned to be told I'm an embarrassment to the family. You are an embarrassment. Richard's mask finally slipped entirely. A teacher making $38,000 annually, driving a 12-year-old Toyota, shopping at discount stores. Do you know how it looks when Amanda and I have to explain you at professional events? The room gasped collectively. Someone whispered. He actually said that out loud. And you? Richard turned on Daniel. Pretending to be some nobody when I'm what? Daniel asked calmly. A successful man who loves his wife. Who's proud that she shapes young minds. Who thinks her work matters more than any corporate deal. Amanda grabbed the microphone from her father. This doesn't change anything. I have the qualifications. I have the connections. You have no experience with education, I said, stepping forward. Name one educational theory. One classroom management technique. One learning disability accommodation. Silence. That's what I thought. Experience doesn't matter when you have talent, Amanda snapped. Some people are born leaders. Others are just teachers. Just teachers. There it was again. My mother finally found her voice. Sarah has always lacked ambition. Always settled for less. I tried to push her toward business school, law school, anything with prestige. But she chose this. 12 years of dedication reduced to a disappointed this. You know what? I said, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom. You're right. Chose this. I chose to wake up every day and make a difference. I chose to be the person children run to with their problems. I chose meaning over money. How noble, Richard sneered. And how convenient that your husband's money lets you play teacher without worrying about bills. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Around us, 300 people watched this family implode, their phones capturing every word. My wife, Daniel said quietly, has never taken a penny from EDU Tech. She doesn't even know the full extent of. He stopped. Actually, you know what? It's time everyone knew exactly who deserves respect in this room. He walked back to the stage with purpose. And this time no one tried to stop him. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement. Daniel stood at the podium with quiet confidence I'd seen him display only in our most private moments, when he talked about changing education, about making a difference. The ballroom fell completely silent. My name is Daniel Chen, he began. Yes, I took my wife's last name when we married. She doesn't know this, but it was because I wanted to honor the only Chen who actually understands what education means. My breath caught. He'd never told me why he'd taken my name. 6 years ago, I watched my wife come home crying because she'd spent her entire paycheck on books for her classroom. That same night, she stayed up until 2 a.m. creating individualized learning plans for each of her students. His voice carried across the room with devastating clarity. That's when I decided to build something that would support teachers like her. Every CEO in this room, Daniel continued, his gaze sweeping the crowd. Every consultant, every successful person here, we all started with a teacher. Someone who saw potential in us. Someone who stayed after school to help us understand. Someone who believed in us when we didn't believe in ourselves. Stephen Williams nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. But we forget them, don't we? We achieve success, and suddenly those teachers become embarrassments. Not impressive enough for our galas. Not worthy of our distinguished tables. This is grandstanding, Richard protested weakly. No, Daniel replied. This is truth. Sarah has touched more lives in 1 year of teaching than most of us will in entire careers. Her students write to her years later. Parents credit her with changing their children's trajectories. But tonight, she wasn't good enough for the family table. He pulled out his phone, projecting something onto the screen behind him. It was a photo. My classroom walls covered with student artwork, achievement certificates, and thank you letters. This is what real success looks like. This is what actually matters. His voice grew stronger. And if Margaret Chen can't see that, if she values networking over knowledge, prestige over purpose, then she doesn't deserve what EDU Tech offers. You can't withdraw funding over personal issues, Amanda called out, her consultant instincts kicking in. Daniel smiled slightly. I'm not withdrawing anything over personal issues. I'm withdrawing it over values misalignment. Section 4.1 of the contract. The sponsor reserves the right to redirect funds if the recipient organization fails to demonstrate commitment to classroom educator support. Redirect? Stephen Williams asked sharply. Redirect where? Daniel looked directly at me, and for the first time that night, his professional mask slipped, revealing pure love and pride. To someone who actually deserves it. I should properly introduce myself, Daniel said, his voice carrying absolute authority now. I'm Daniel Chen, founder and CEO of EDU Tech Solutions. The ballroom erupted. Gasps, exclamations, chairs scraping as people stood for a better view. The photographer's camera clicked rapidly, capturing the moment my mother's empire crumbled. That's impossible, Richard stammered, gripping the table edge. You're nobody. You drive a Toyota. You shop at warehouse stores. I do, Daniel agreed. Because I'd rather put money into classrooms than into status symbols. Revolutionary concept, I know. My mother had collapsed into her chair, her face ash gray. You've been lying to us for 9 years. I never lied. You never asked. You assumed a quiet man who supported his teacher wife must be unsuccessful. Your prejudice blinded you. Amanda's phone rang. She answered reflexively, her face draining of color as she listened. I understand. Yes, sir. She hung up looking stunned. That was senior partner Matthews. Sterling Advisory wants to discuss the firm's reputation risk. What? Richard shrieked. The live stream of tonight has already hit 80,000 views, someone called out. It's trending. Stephen Williams stepped forward. Mr. Chen, Daniel, as committee chairman, I need to know your intentions regarding the initiative. Daniel never broke eye contact with my mother. EDU Tech Solutions is withdrawing all funding from the Chen Literacy Initiative effective immediately. You can't, my mother roared, finally finding her voice. We have a contract, which you violated the moment you announced Amanda's appointment without sponsor approval. Your own consultant should have caught that. He glanced at Amanda. Oh wait. The irony was devastating. Amanda's incompetence had given Daniel the perfect exit clause. Furthermore, Daniel continued, I'm establishing a new initiative, the Sarah Chen Excellence in Teaching Foundation. $4 million managed by actual educators for actual educators. The teachers at table 15 started applauding. Then table 14 joined. Soon half the room was clapping. All the educators who'd been relegated to the back, all the ordinary people who actually understood what mattered. Stephen, Daniel addressed the committee chairman, I'd like you to consider chairing the new foundation. We need someone with your integrity. Stephen Williams looked between Daniel and my mother. His decision clear. I'd be honored. This is theft, Richard screamed. We'll sue. Please do, Daniel said calmly. I'm sure the publicity will be wonderful for everyone involved. Headmaster's husband calls teachers embarrassments. Has such a nice ring to it. My mother stood slowly, her dignity in tatters, her legacy destroyed in minutes. Sarah, you've ruined everything. But I wasn't looking at her anymore. I was looking at my husband, the man who just revealed himself as my fiercest protector, my quietest champion. Effective immediately, Daniel announced, his voice carrying the finality of a judge's gavel. EDU Tech Solutions withdraws all funding from the Chen Literacy Initiative. The words echoed through the ballroom like thunder. $4 million gone in a single sentence. You can't do this. My mother lurched toward the stage. That money was promised. The announcements were made. The programs were planned. Plans change, Daniel said, echoing my mother's earlier words back to her. Isn't that what you told Sarah about her committee position? Stephen Williams was already on his phone, likely calling an emergency committee meeting. Other committee members huddled together, their whispers urgent and panicked. This is vindictive, Amanda accused, her voice shaking. You're punishing an initiative that helps children because of a family dispute. No, Daniel corrected. I'm redirecting resources to people who actually understand education. The contract explicitly states that EDU Tech funds must support classroom educators. Giving control to someone who's never taught violates our core mission. She was going to learn, Richard protested desperately. From whom? From the teacher you just called an embarrassment. Daniel's tone remained professionally cold. From the daughter Mrs. Chen couldn't acknowledge in her speech. The live stream comments were scrolling rapidly on someone's phone screen nearby. Justice. Finally, someone stands up to nepotism. That teacher deserves better. Mrs. Chen. Stephen Williams spoke up, his decision made. Given this development, the committee needs to reconvene immediately. Amanda's appointment is obviously void without funding. This is a conspiracy, Richard spat. You all planned this. We planned nothing, I said, finding my voice. You created the situation with your choices. Every insult, every slight, every moment you made me feel worthless. You built this outcome yourselves. My mother's shoulders sagged. In 90 seconds, she'd gone from celebrated headmaster to the woman who lost $4 million through arrogance and nepotism. The teaching community deserves better, Daniel continued. They deserve leaders who understand their struggles, who value their contributions, who see them as professionals, not embarrassments. Please, my mother said quietly, the fight draining from her. The initiative helps hundreds of teachers. And it still will, Daniel replied. Just not under your name. Not under leadership that sees teachers as less than. The Sarah Chen Foundation will serve the same community with actual respect. A reporter pushed forward. Mr. Chen, are you saying this was personal? Daniel considered the question. I'm saying that values matter. If you can't respect teachers, you shouldn't control teacher funding. It's that simple. The security guards who'd almost escorted us out earlier now stood awkwardly, unsure what to do. The power dynamic had shifted so completely. They looked to Daniel for direction. We're done here, Daniel said simply. Daniel returned to the microphone one final time, his presence commanding absolute attention. Before we leave, I want to announce the establishment of the Sarah Chen Excellence in Teaching Foundation. His voice carried pride that made my eyes burn with tears. $4 million dedicated to supporting classroom educators who do the real work of shaping our future. The teachers at table 15 rose to their feet, applauding. Mr. Park was crying openly. This foundation will provide grants for classroom supplies, fund continuing education, and offer mental health support for teachers facing burnout. Daniel looked directly at me. It will be chaired by someone who understands what teachers actually need, because she is one. You want me to. I couldn't finish the sentence. If you'll accept, Daniel said softly. Though I should mention, I never told you about EDU Tech because I wanted you to love me for me, not for this. I know, I whispered, remembering all the times he'd supported me without fanfare, without recognition, without need for credit. This is outrageous, Richard's voice cracked with desperation. You can't just create a competing foundation. It's not competing, Daniel corrected. Your initiative no longer exists without funding. This is a replacement. Stephen Williams stepped forward. For what it's worth, the committee members who actually care about education would be honored to serve under Mrs. Chen's leadership. 35 teachers in the room stood up, a wave of movement from the back tables, then support staff, then several parents I recognized. Soon nearly half the room was standing. All the people who understood what really mattered in education. Additionally, Daniel announced, EDU Tech will match any donation made to the foundation tonight, dollar for dollar. Immediately, phones came out. The head of the Regional Teachers Union called out, 15,000 from our emergency fund. 25,000 from the Parent-Teacher Coalition, someone else shouted. Within minutes, pledges totaling $380,000 filled the air. With matching, we'd raised over $750,000 in addition to the base funding. Amanda stood frozen, watching her carefully planned future crumble. The committee position, the prestige, the networking opportunities, all evaporating because she'd skimmed a contract. This won't stand, she said weakly. There are legal implications. You're right, Daniel agreed. Your firm will probably want to discuss how their lead consultant missed crucial contract terms that cost a client $4 million. That does have legal implications. Her phone rang again. She looked at the screen and didn't answer. Mrs. Chen, Stephen Williams addressed me formally. Would you accept the position of founding chair? I looked at my mother, who sat defeated at her distinguished table. Her grand retirement transformed into public humiliation. Then at Daniel, who'd protected me while respecting my independence. I accept. Amanda's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Each call she declined made the next one come faster. Finally she had to answer. Yes, Mr. Matthews. Her voice was barely audible, but in the hushed ballroom we could all hear. I understand. The live stream, I know. Tomorrow morning. Yes, sir. She hung up, her hands trembling. The lead consultant who'd strutted in designer heels now looked like a business school graduate who'd failed her first presentation. They want to discuss damage control, she said numbly. The firm's biggest education clients saw the stream. They're reconsidering their contract. What did you expect? Mr. Park asked, not unkindly. You publicly insulted an entire profession. Teachers are parents too. They're voters. They're clients. The reality was sinking in. Amanda hadn't just insulted me. She'd insulted every teacher watching, every parent who valued education, every person who remembered a teacher who'd changed their life. Richard grabbed his daughter's arm. We'll fix this. We'll issue a statement. We'll say you were misquoted. It's live streamed, Dad, Amanda said flatly. 80,000 views and climbing. The business blogs are already picking it up. Consultant who skimmed multi-million-dollar contract calls teachers worthless. Her phone buzzed with a text. She read it and actually laughed, a broken, disbelieving sound. The professional association wants to discuss my public conduct. Apparently, demeaning educators violates professional ethics standards. Daniel spoke quietly. Actions have consequences. You chose to build your career on stepping on others. Now others are stepping back. This is your fault, Richard turned on me viciously. If you'd just accepted your place. Her place, Daniel interrupted, is wherever she chooses to stand. And tonight, she's standing as the head of a foundation that will actually help teachers, not just use them for photo opportunities. Stephen Williams cleared his throat. Margaret, the committee needs your resignation letter by Friday. Given tonight's events, your continued involvement would be problematic. My mother didn't respond. She sat staring at the tablecloth, aging years in minutes. For what it's worth, I said quietly. I never wanted this. I just wanted to be included, to be valued, to have my mother proud of what I do. I was proud, she said hoarsely. I wanted more for you. More than shaping the future. More than being loved by 32 kids who think I hung the moon. More than making a real difference. I shook my head. That's not more, Mom. That's just different. And different isn't better. Amanda's phone rang again. Another client pulling out. Another consequence landing. The empire built on dismissing teachers was crumbling, one phone call at a time. By the time we left the ballroom, the video had gone viral. 3 million views in 4 hours. The hashtag teachers deserve respect was trending nationally. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Messages from former students, fellow teachers, parents who'd heard what happened. The story had struck a nerve. Every teacher who'd been told they were just a teacher. Every educator who'd been asked, "But what's your real job?" "The internet never forgets," Daniel said as we sat in our car, watching the numbers climb on social media. The fallout was swift and merciless. Screenshots of Richard calling teachers embarrassments became memes. Amanda's, "Some people are meant for greatness, others for teaching," was printed on protest signs outside Sterling Advisory by morning. My mother's reputation, built over 28 years, destroyed in one night. The headmaster who didn't value teachers, the educator who saw education as embarrassing. The irony was devastating. 4 days later, the district board released a statement. In light of recent events, Margaret Chen has voluntarily accelerated her retirement effective immediately. Voluntarily. We all knew what that meant. Richard and Amanda moved to Arizona within the month. Amanda's partnership track at Sterling Advisory had been indefinitely postponed. She took a position at a small firm specializing in real estate contracts. No more education clients. No more prestigious cases. Her LinkedIn profile no longer mentioned Yale business in the first line. But the positive responses overwhelmed everything else. Teachers from across the country sharing their stories. Parents thanking me for standing up. Students, so many students saying their teachers deserved better. The Sarah Chen Foundation received over 60 corporate sponsorship offers in the first week. Companies wanted to be associated with respecting teachers, not dismissing them. We had to hire staff just to process the applications. You know what the ironic part is? I told Daniel as we reviewed foundation applications. Mom spent 28 years in education, but she'll be remembered for disrespecting educators. She made her choice, Daniel said simply. Every time she introduced Amanda instead of you. Every time she valued prestige over purpose. Choices have consequences. 6 weeks later, we held our first foundation board meeting. Stephen Williams, 7 veteran teachers, 3 parent advocates, and me. No consultants unless they'd taught. No business executives unless they'd volunteered in classrooms. Just people who understood that teaching wasn't less than, it was everything. The meeting was at table 15 of the same ballroom. We'd specifically requested it. From the back tables to the boardroom, Mr. Park said with a smile. That's quite a journey. No, I corrected. From the classroom to the boardroom. That's the journey that matters. 2 months after the gala, my mother called. I'd been expecting it. Richard had left her 3 weeks prior, moving to Arizona to be near Amanda. The house felt empty, she said. The silence was oppressive. Sarah, we need to talk. We're talking now. In person, please. Her voice sounded older, fragile. I need to apologize. Do you? Or do you need forgiveness to salvage your reputation? Long pause. You've become harsh. No, Mum. I've become clear. There's a difference. What I did was wrong, she said finally. I see that now. What exactly was wrong? Be specific. Another pause. I could picture her struggling, still unable to fully admit her failures. I shouldn't have given Amanda your position. And I shouldn't have excluded you from the distinguished table. And, Sarah, please. You've made your point. You've destroyed everything. My reputation, my retirement, my marriage. I destroyed nothing, I interrupted. You did that yourself. Every choice you made led to that moment. I just stopped protecting you from consequences. You're my daughter. Doesn't that mean anything? It meant everything to me. But what did it mean to you? Was I your daughter when you forgot my birthday 3 times? When you missed my teaching award ceremony for Richard's business dinner? When you introduced Amanda as the daughter you're proud of? Silence stretched between us. Years of hurt condensed into seconds. What do you want from me? She asked finally. Nothing. That's the point. I don't need anything from you anymore. So that's it. You're cutting me off. I'm setting boundaries. If you want a relationship, here are my terms. 8 months of family therapy, a public apology to the teaching community, and a genuine effort to understand why what you did was wrong. Not just the consequences, but the actual harm. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to therapy like some. Then we're done. Your choice, Mom. Just like it's always been your choice. You've changed, she said bitterly. Daniel has turned you against me. No, Mom. Daniel showed me I deserved respect. You showed me you wouldn't give it. That's not the same thing. I hung up gently. No anger, no satisfaction. Just peace. He didn't call back. Didn't meet my terms. Made her choice again. And for the first time in my life I was okay with that. Her approval was no longer my measure of worth. 8 months later, the Sarah Chen Foundation had awarded 143 scholarships to teachers pursuing advanced degrees. We'd provided emergency grants to 104 classrooms facing supply shortages. We'd funded mental health support for over 250 educators experiencing burnout. But I still taught kindergarten at Lincoln Elementary. Why don't you quit? A reporter asked during an interview. You're running a multi-million-dollar foundation. Because I'm a teacher, I replied simply. The foundation exists to support teachers. How can I do that if I stop being one? Daniel and I had moved nothing about our daily life. We still lived in our modest 2-bedroom apartment. He still drove his Toyota. I still shopped sales for classroom supplies, though now the foundation reimbursed me, and every other teacher who submitted receipts. The real change was internal. I walked taller, spoke clearer, set boundaries without apology. Mrs. Chen. Emma, my former student with speech delays, now in 2nd grade, ran up to me in the hallway. I joined the debate club. That's amazing, Emma. My mom says it's because you taught me that my voice matters. My voice matters. My mother's dismissal reversed and redeemed. Daniel and I were stronger than ever. The secret he'd kept hadn't been about deception, but protection. He'd wanted me to be valued for myself, not his money. He'd wanted my mother to see my worth without knowing about EDU tech. Any regrets? I asked him one evening as we reviewed foundation applications together. Only one, he said. I wish I'd stood up for you sooner. You stood up when it mattered most. We'd been trying for a baby for 3 years. The stress of family drama hadn't helped. But now, with peace in our lives, with boundaries firmly set, something shifted. Tess showed 2 lines. A teacher's baby, Daniel said. His hand on my still flat stomach. They're going to change the world. Every baby changes the world, I corrected. Teachers just help them realize it. My mother hadn't met my terms. No therapy, no apology, no effort to understand. Richard sent occasional hostile emails that went straight to spam. Amanda had reinvented herself as a life coach on social media, never mentioning her consulting career. But I had 32 5-year-olds who thought I was magic. A husband who saw my true worth. A foundation helping thousands of teachers. And now a baby on the way. Different wasn't less than. It was everything. Looking back now, I realize the most important lesson from that night wasn't about revenge or justice. It was about recognition, not from others but from ourselves. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. Read that again. Your worth exists regardless of who acknowledges it. I spent 33 years seeking my mother's approval, measuring my success through her eyes. But teaching isn't less than finance. Caring isn't less than competing. Service isn't less than status. These are different paths, not different values. The hardest boundary I ever set wasn't with my mother. It was with myself. The boundary against self-doubt, against internalized criticism, against believing that choosing purpose over prestige made me less than. Daniel didn't save me that night. He revealed what was already true, that my work mattered, that my choice had value, that the 32 kids who learned to read in my classroom were just as important as any corporate deal. The foundation has grown beyond anything we imagined. But you know what makes me proudest? Last week, one of my former students became a teacher. She said, "Mrs. Chen, you showed me that teaching is a superpower." It is. Every teacher reading this, watching this, living this, you have superpowers. You shape minds. You build futures. You catch children when they fall and teach them to fly. That's not average. That's extraordinary. My mother and I haven't spoken in 10 months. Maybe we never will. But I've learned that family isn't about blood. It's about respect. It's about the people who see your worth when you're doubting it yourself. It's about the husband who builds an empire to honor your work. It's about the students who write thank you letters 12 years later. It's about the colleagues who stand and applaud when everyone else is sitting. For those of you facing similar situations, whether it's family, friends, or colleagues who diminish your choices, remember this. Their inability to see your value doesn't diminish it. Their need to rank worth by salary doesn't define it. Their discomfort with your joy doesn't destroy it. Set your boundaries with love, but hold them with steel. You deserve to be celebrated, not tolerated. You deserve to be valued, not compared. You deserve respect for the path you've chosen, especially when that path serves others. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe conspires to give you a Daniel, someone who sees you, values you, and when necessary reveals the truth about your worth to the world. But even if it doesn't, even if you're standing alone at table 15 while others sit at the distinguished table, remember that your worth isn't determined by your seat assignment. Never was. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you in any way, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose between family approval and self-respect? What would you have done in my situation? And teachers, what's the most dismissive thing someone said about your profession? Let's celebrate each other. Remember, you deserve to be valued for who you are, not who others want you to be. Until next time, stay strong and keep setting those boundaries.